Thank you for visiting HuldaClark.com. We'd like to take this opportunity to share with our first-time visitors a little background information on the experimental research and published works of Hulda Clark, Ph.D., N.D. Dr. Clark is a research scientist and has published several books, the most famous being The Cure for All Cancers and The Cure for All Diseases. In these books, Dr. Clark discusses her experimental research working with cancer and AIDS patients. It is important for you to know that Dr. Clark's work and published programs have not been evaluated by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. This background information is provided for educational use and is not intended as medical advice. Individuals can experiment with Dr. Clark's methods, but they must be aware that these methods are considered experimental, and anyone deciding to experiment with Dr. Clark's methods do so at their own risk. It is always smart to talk with a licensed health professional before attempting any self-health program. All of Dr. Clark's programs are based on the belief that nearly all disease is caused by a combination of pollutants and parasites. Dr. Clark defines a pollutant as any toxic substance or chemical that we come in contact with. Her definition of a parasite is any virus, bacteria, or parasite that lives in our body and feeds off our body. Pollutants come from our environment. Bad work conditions, musty, moldy sleeping areas, household chemicals, petroleum products, chemical body products, and processed foods, to name a few places where pollutants most commonly come from. Parasites come from many sources. Foods like meats, grains, uncooked veggies, dirt, pets, other people, and everyday life in general brings with it exposure to parasites. They are quite literally everywhere, and humans are known to be heavily parasitized creatures. Now for Dr. Clark's parasite-pollutant connection. Dr. Clark believes that many pollutants break down into dangerous solvents. The pollutants enter our body in one way or another, and the body does its best to remove them. Dr. Clark explains that most of the solvents will leave when we go to the bathroom, but for a while they all accumulate in our bowel and intestine, where they may come in contact with parasites. Many parasites live in the bowel or in the intestine, and normally they release their eggs with our bowel movement. The eggs reach the water system, hatches, and just swims away. However, Dr. Clark states that when the body is full of pollutants, the solvents that are present in the bowel actually dissolve the shells around the parasite eggs so that the microscopic baby parasites hatch and enter our bloodstream quite by mistake. The little baby parasites are lost inside our bodies, wreaking havoc wherever they go. Eventually, they may get to their large adult stage and get trapped in our body. They may find themselves in our liver, in our kidney, our brain, pretty much anywhere. Dr. Clark believes this is when most diseases begin. Here we have an adult parasite trapped in one of our organs, feeding on whatever it can and creating a lot of waste inside our body. Dr. Clark explains that the parasite waste creates inflammation, and it may even lead to fungal growth and eventually tumor formation as the body tries to surround the invader to protect itself. So, Dr. Clark came up with a few of her own answers that seemed to work for her when used all together. First, avoid all pollutants. Remove every toxic chemical from your living space. If you have any toxic chemicals in your living space, toss them out or move them to a storage shed or other space separate from your living quarters. Find natural alternatives for your soaps and body products. Avoid food pollutants. Eat better. Make home-cooked meals and avoid processed fast foods. For many people, this first step is the hardest because it's a lifestyle change. The best part is, most of the pure, all-natural products work as well or even better than the chemical-based store-bought varieties, so you do not have to compromise quality to make these changes. Second, stay parasite-free. Dr. Clark suggests two things to stay parasite-free. she has published her Herbal Parasite Cleanse, which is an 18-day program where one takes the herbs black walnut hull, wormwood, and cloves. After the 18 days, the maintenance program is once a week from then on to stay parasite-free. Taking these 3 herbs once a week is a very easy program to follow. Dr. Clark also uses an electronic frequency generator she calls a zapper to kill parasites. It is Dr. Clark's belief that parasites, bacteria, and viruses are killed off by the zapper's high frequency. Dr. Clark explains that the zapper works in a similar way to a singer singing the perfect note to shatter a glass. The Hulda Clark zapper is set to a frequency to destroy parasites, bacteria, and viruses, much like the singer shattering the glass. When one uses a zapper, they don't feel a thing. There's no electric shock or discomfort. One simply holds onto the 2 handles, turns the zapper on. The Clark zapper is an experimental device, and Dr. Clark suggests that anyone that is pregnant or wearing an electronic pacemaker should not experiment with a zapper. It is also important to note that the Hulda Clark zapper has not been licensed by the U.S. FDA as a medical device for use in the cure, mitigation, treatment, or prevention of any disease. The Clark zapper can only be sold as an experimental device at this time. So, in a nutshell, the Herbal Parasite Cleanse and the daily zapping routine is the foundation of all of Dr. Clark's published programs. For the complete details on Dr. Clark's zapper and herbal programs, you must read Dr. Clark's books. For the latest books by Dr. Hulda Clark, visit www.huldaclark.com.